Hello, and thank you for tuning into Spiritual Wake Up Call. I'm your host, Marilyn Tennant, and today we have special guest Victor Manzo. He is a business mindset coach, so he is somebody who you can confide in and getting your business to grow by using the laws of mirroring, the laws of vibration, the things that make this show go tick. Talking about the universal laws, and we're going to be talking about how your mindset has such an impact on what you see in your world and how you value things. And he also has a background in chiropractic, so he is going to be talking with us about alignment, and we're just going to be getting into all the good stuff. So be prepared to open your mind, open your heart, and see what's inside. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into Spiritual Wake Up Call. I'm your host, Marilyn Tennant, and today is a very special episode because I have Victor Manzo here, and he is a business mindset coach. And I am just so happy and thrilled to have you here because he has a lot of interesting things to say. He has a very interesting background. He has a background in chiropractic, pediatric chiropractic to be specific. And I really want to hear about how you got into chiropractic and how you got out, what made you want to go into business mindset coaching.
Love it. Let's do it. So, I got into chiropractic. It wasn't a calling. It wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, chiropractic sounds amazing. I want to do this. It really, in our profession, a lot of times we say it calls us rather than we call it. And so one of the things is, growing up, my mom's a fitness instructor. She still teaches classes till this day. I think it's been like 37 years. She's been doing yoga for over 20 as an instructor. So I grew up in the world of seeing what's health as being exercise, supplements, and nutrition, right? How you eat and so forth. And so for the first 13 years of my life, that's all I was conditioned. And so then at 13, I wanted to start learning how to work out and get in shape because I was not that type of, I was a kid who I was considered husky. Like my pant size was husky. And my mom said a natural belly, which I was like, I never understood what that was. But as I got older and understood more chiropractic, I'm like, I know why she says that now. But long story short, I started my journey at 13, but what ended up happening is at 19 years old, and I was playing rugby for the club team. And one of the things that, especially after a couple months of this, I was just like, wow, I can run 5-minute miles. I can do all these things. I'm lifting double my weight in so many different realms. I was just blown away. But what was happening is every month my health was getting worse and worse. I started having acne on my back, which I never had before, canker sores in my mouth every 1 to 2 weeks. And then I had like lightness. I had sensitivity to light. I had headaches. I had TMJ issues. Couldn't open my mouth. Couldn't put 2 fingers in my mouth. I had digestive issues showing up in many different ways. I was always inflamed, feeling bloated all the time, lethargic, no matter how much I slept. So there was a plethora of stuff. And it didn't happen all at once. It was a monthly kind of thing that like a new thing just kept showing up. So I started getting nervous towards the end of the year, and I was like, let me go see a medical doctor. Maybe I think I have some blood disorder. So I called my mom, said, can we find who we have to get a hold of? Took about a month to get in. About 4 days before my appointment, my mom was like, hey, why don't you go see Dr. Frank? Dr. Frank's a chiropractor she's been seeing since I was 1 year old, but I was seeing him for about nine and a half years old to 11 for bedwetting issues and so forth. And I was like, well, if you can get me in like by tomorrow, let's do it. And if you think he can help, and my mom's like, yeah, I'll get you in. So he called. He was able to get me in the next day, and my whole life changed. I remember he was like, hey, 2 months, I'm going to be seeing you a lot. He's like, I can get all this. We can probably get all your symptoms away by then, but you'll need chiropractic care for the rest of your life. This is the same guy that told me I couldn't play organized football when I was a kid. And then he was telling me I couldn't play rugby anymore. And I was like, come on, man, you did it when I was younger with football, but rugby, come on, I love this sport. He's like, you got scoliosis. It's really, long story short, though, that's what propelled me to want to be a chiropractor. And what amazed me the most was, and what challenged my paradigm of health was that I went to this chiropractor for 2 months, back to Arizona State. I went there. I found the chiropractor out there. I'm under chiropractic care for 4 months, and my body went down to 10% body fat. And I was in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. Now, I didn't do anything different. That's what was like extra mind blowing to everything else, where I was like, how is this happening? Like, I haven't changed anything. My workouts are the same. My eating's the same. Nothing has changed there. But yet I am in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. And I was just like, there is something to this. I need to learn more. And there's so many people that need, worse off than I am. And that started my journey into chiropractic. So I ended up moving back home to Chicago. Went to finish up. I went to school there for business at University of Illinois in Chicago, and then I ventured off to Dallas to go to chiropractic school. And so that's how I got into chiropractic.
Okay, okay. So that's just an interesting field to go into. All chiropractors that I know, that I've met, have been open to the holistic side of things. It is a holistic field, right? More than like an MD. I'm not that saying MDs are not able to be holistic, because I have met some that are able to look at the body as a whole, but it's not generally what they are specialized in. It's usually a choice that they decide to go into. And the holistic viewpoint is so different. It is so important, I think, in treating your patient, because you're not just a sum of your parts, right? You're not just a spine, you're not just a musculoskeletal system. You're, you have meridians, you have chakras, they know what that kind of language is. And you also are into Reiki. I believe you're a Reiki practitioner, I heard. So do you want to go into that? And um, did that take any play into why you decided to leave chiropractic?
What happened is when I got to chiropractic school, I was kind of bummed out because I was learning in chiropractic school. A lot of people don't know this, is that we learn for the first year and a half, identical to what medical doctors learn. There's no
That's right.
difference.
You're right.
And so in that process, my chiropractor was very philosophical. So it's made up of three things. It's made of the art, which is all the techniques we use to adjust the spine in every single way. We have the science, which is all our research. And then we have our philosophy, which is stuff that's from, it's not like just in the chiropractic profession. It's actually universal laws, universal principles, things like that. Because actually chiropractic comes from Hermetic principles. I say this sometimes, some people go, it comes from occult practices in some ways. Like when I remember I was going to chiropractic school, I remember in our philosophy class, they're like, here, we're going to give you a book you should read, which is the 33 Principles on Chiropractic. And I was like, oh, 33 Principles, 33, that's a cool number. Principles on Chiropractic. I'm like, great, this is going to be cool. And I start reading it, has nothing, absolutely not one thing to do with chiropractic specifically. It had to do with universal laws and universal intelligence, innate intelligence, and
Mm,
how a force and how it changes and alters the damage. All living things have some sort, like it was different than what I was
wow.
expecting. But we
Yeah.
didn't learn a whole mess of that.
Hmm.
And for me, I was like, I'm not happy with this. I need to learn. I want to learn what really healing is. And actually, the first practitioner, the guy who started chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, he was actually a magnetic healer, and it's very similar to Reiki. And then he transferred into creating chiropractic. And I was like, I want to know what he did, because it was him who talked all about tone and energy and metaphysical aspect of what chiropractic is. But unfortunately, then BJ, his son, and continuing on, they got more into the science and all this other stuff rather than sticking to what our principles were. And so that's where I knew I was going to learn that in school. So I started to look outside to learn. I was like, okay, I want to learn energy healing. I want to know what it is to heal with hands, because I'm not going to learn this in school. So I want to learn it somewhere else. So first thing was Reiki, becoming excuse me, taking Reiki classes, became a Reiki master and trainer. And then from there, I took off on another like 10 to 12 different energy healing techniques, so I can understand the depth of how healing works. That's what I was really looking at. And then I was able to connect the dots where I was like, oh, that's why we say this in chiropractic. Oh, that's why we talk like this. That makes sense. That's the reality of what we do. And when you look at what we do as chiropractors, it's really working with consciousness. We're expressing more consciousness throughout the body. That's literally what we do. But it's not talk like that. You don't hear about that. We think it's a treatment base. A lot of people, this is how people mostly treat chiropractic, and it's not the people's fault. It's the media, partially chiropractors also. There's a whole system in place on that, but it's one of those things where, we're looking at how do we express more light throughout the body, and when you're talking about chakras, the chakras get access through the spine, and it's how we can change them. And when you express more consciousness throughout the body, that'll increase the chakras to spin faster, which enhances the light expression there. It's going to affect meridians, because the meridians are branches off the nervous system that express energy throughout the body. And so when you really start to look at this is where my understanding came from. And then I was like, okay, now I understand healing. But through that journey, this is where I learned also about spirituality. I started learning about quantum physics and consciousness and all this other stuff that intrigued me like crazy. And I was like, I want to learn more about that because that's interesting. And that started to set the premise for me, not initially, but it was years into business later where I returned back to those things. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start to change gears on how I run my business and run my practice. And that's what started to start to implement the things that I teach now, and kind of stimulated me towards wanting to look into coaching business owners and so forth.
And speaking of which, the mindset of going into entrepreneurship versus being an employee is a completely different mindset. Do you mind going into what that is, what that entails? How does somebody shift that? And this is a selfish question because I am doing that. I'm in the process of doing that. I'm leaving nursing. And I don't know if you know, but a lot of nurses are leaving nursing in the last few years in droves, because the industrial medical complex is very toxic and it's falling to its knees, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it, but it's going to have to rebuild itself. And so people like you, people like me I do breath work and all kinds of, I do energy medicine as well. We're going to be the ones that they're going to actually have to look at, because they didn't want to, but now they're going to have to. Maybe not now, but in the future. And we're kind of trailblazing. But that, anyways, that's my tangent. So I am going into entrepreneurship now, and I'm finding that that is a totally different mindset of being like, as opposed to going in and clocking in and shift work and doing somebody else's rules, and it's so something that I should have done a long time ago, I'm realizing, because I'm the type of person that like just does not like taking somebody else's rules, especially if it doesn't make any sense. Like if it's just, especially if it's just to make the hospital money and that's why you're doing it, that killed me. So I just want to hear more on what you have to say on that mindset of the transitioning for those that are listening that are thinking about entrepreneurship or self-employment. And how do you shift into that? What would you have to say?
I would say the biggest thing, and the biggest thing out of all this is, number one, well, let me take a step back. Just looking at the difference between the two, you were kind of already talking about it. You're living someone else's, and you hear this, you're living someone else's dreams. You're helping someone else's dreams. I can say that to us, right? Because I'm all about fulfillment at the end of the day. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint, the biggest thing, the cool thing is you have freedom to choose whatever you want. Right. But how do you make the shift to go into that? Well, if you're doing that, there's no limit to that. See, entrepreneurship is constant learning and constant growing that never ends. Right. So once you shift your mind to say, well, I don't make mistakes, I don't fail, I just learn. I made a mistake. No, it's not really a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. Right. And so taking everything that comes to you and understanding that it's going to be a learning experience, but it's going to help you evolve to where you want to go. I think that's the biggest thing. That's why a lot of people don't go into entrepreneurship in some way, shape, or form, because they get tired of working on themselves. They get tired of the things that keep showing up, the struggles that sometimes may come, which really aren't struggles, but I'm just using words that humans relate to the most. And it's one of those things that if you can start to look and say, well, you know what, though, it's going to be a learning experience. It's going to be, I believe in myself. I know there's going to be up and down battles, but at the same token, the cool thing about it is, again, you got to train your mind to look also into the future, is that I get to choose what I want to do and how I want to do it. Right. So I love being a chiropractor. Chiropractors express their own uniqueness as they are. You can line up 10 chiropractors, they're all going to talk chiropractic a little different. That's the beauty of our profession, which gets mocked at sometimes, but that is the beauty of our profession because we're human. But at the same token, like for me, I express chiropractic how I wanted to express in the way that I wanted to. I didn't have someone telling me I can't express chiropractic in this way or that way. I got to choose what I wanted to do. I got to choose how much I want to make. How cool is that? You're not held to that. So there's the freeing side of it. But I think the real big thing is a lot of people get tripped up over is you're going to learn more about yourself in that process. And so from a mindset perspective, the basis of what I'm sharing with you is fixed versus growth. Fixed mindset people do not do well in business on their own, and they usually work for somebody because they just think that this is who I am. This is what I'm about. And that's the end of it. Growth mindset are the more successful entrepreneurs because no matter what comes their way, they're going to craft it, mold it, adapt, and evolve. And that is the mindset you want to have when it comes to being an entrepreneur. You're going to have dark moments. As an entrepreneur, I always say everyone should be an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form, because you're going to learn so much about yourself, because the business is going to be about you at the end of the day. It's a byproduct of you. And for the most part, at least. And you're going to evolve and grow, but there's going to be painful moments because there's going to be learning curves that you're going to have to learn from. Some of it's past conditioning, some of it's trauma from, or just conditioning as a kid, and so forth. But these are things that you're going to evolve. So understanding, if you can just see that perspective of knowing that whatever shows up as you're going through this journey of being an entrepreneur, that, you know, if you see it in a growth perspective, man, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to be living your dream, and you're going to sit back and go, I just can't believe how this all worked out the way it did. And it's actually mind blowing.
And there's so many examples of how somebody could take the universal laws, or take this idea that we can manifest our own reality, so to speak, although there are constrictions, because this is a holographic universe, right? Like everything we're seeing is a reflection of what's inside, really. And so when you realize that, when the challenge comes up, you can shrink down or you can grow. And I love this proverb. I don't know if you heard of it, but there's a proverb of a donkey falling in a well. Have you heard that one?
Go ahead and share the story.
It's beautiful.
I probably heard it before, but
you probably heard it before, but I just heard it recently, and it reminded me so much of what I'm going through. The donkey fell in the well, and the farmer was trying to figure out how to get the donkey out, and he just was looking for help. He was looking for tools, trying to create ideas, and he realized, you know what? I can't do it. I can't do it. And the poor donkey is suffering. You could hear the donkey crying in the well. So he decided he was going to bury the donkey, and just throws a bunch of dirt. So he got the other farmers and help around to pour dirt with the shovel one by one. And as they were doing that, the donkey realized what was happening, and he started crying. And then we noticed, after a while, he noticed that the donkey stopped crying. The more dirt that they poured down there, the donkey stopped crying. And he realized that the donkey was making the most of the opportunity, and he was using all the piles of dirt to climb up on and get higher. So because of that act, they were able to keep going, and the donkey finally climbed himself out of the well once he got to the mouth of the well. And that is an example of things that come to you in your reality. You can make it into a strength. Have you ever seen anybody do something like that? I mean, I know you did that with this history of your scoliosis that became your pathway to where you're at now.
So yeah, I when I first got in the business, it wasn't something that I planned to have any failures. I wanted to be successful, create an impact, support my lifestyle. And it was about a year and a half in. I started my business right after October 8, 2008, 2009. I got out of school in 2009. My business started in 2010. And banks at the time with student loans were not friendly at all. Like, you have to pay full price. That's it. There was no what they have nowadays, all the programs they have. And so my business, I was pressured to make money up to a certain point. I have to make money. And after about a year, a little over a year, almost a year and a half, it was starting to become to a point where I was like, I can't keep up. Like, I was growing. My business was growing. It was doing pretty well, but it was not at a level where I can cover all my expenses. And I was like, well, I either got to make, I put my business on my credit cards, which I don't recommend doing that, like buying equipment and stuff. But it was one of those things where it got to a point where I'm like, all right, I either let my dream go, which is my business for now, or I go bankrupt and let go of everything personally. And then hopefully, I hope that it'll give me the freedom that I need. And it took me a year to make that decision. I was so beat up by it because I came from a family that was blue collar, and the thing my parents did a great job, and my environment showed me very well what I don't want in my life and what I want to strive for. And so here I am trying to start a business all on my own, and I'm hitting all these challenges. I mean, there was obstacles every step of the way, but all of a sudden I decided to go bankrupt. I was very disheartened by it and so much more. But later on, it was my launching pad for me, actually. and let go of that stress for just a little bit. And then the business started to take off even more. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is great. So financially, everything worked out from there. A couple of years later, I hit a financial peak, and it was just awesome how everything lined up. But the big aha for me is understanding how I had to go through that. I wrote a book all about this called A Walk in the Dark, and how all the darkness that we go through in life is actually our big greatest blessing. There's nothing bad in life. And even though this was like very disheartening for me, and it took me a while to get over it, there came a point though in my life where I was like, well, how did I create this? And I started asking these questions, and I started to realize, where was my mind? Where was my focus? Where were things at? And all of a sudden I realized I had all these limiting beliefs that were built underneath. And this is why it led down that path. Then I realized I didn't have to, but it's one of those things where I put this to work from a mindset perspective, and it's worked every single time. And I'm always so grateful and thankful for that experience, because it helped me to understand that principle, to now that when it comes to these things, it's like, it doesn't matter what's showing up. It's just in my mind. I just have to stay centered. It's my energy. How do I keep focused on where I want to go? And that's been a game changer for me. Just like when you saw the apartment, I could do this or that. I don't know which one to do. And then you're like, Airbnb it. And then all of a sudden, here comes that opportunity now where it becomes what you thought was going to be a negative turns into a positive. What I thought bankruptcy was going to be a negative for me, and all the challenges that were going to come with it, it actually turned around, and it became one of my biggest, it was the biggest, one of the biggest blessings in business, to help not only from getting a little bit of a break to grow here financially, but it was also, the other aspect is the mindset more than anything, because that's value. I mean, I would spend millions of dollars to understand the principle that I understand, because now it comes to a point of, it's not about what's showing up in my life, it's about where I'm at. And as long as I can just keep my focus and keep my mind open and stay open and allow for the kind of things to happen instead of resist.
I really want to know what you have to say about the 12. We talked about the 12 universal laws. And do you have anything to say about what your favorite one that you pay attention to more, and how that can help others?
The biggest one I like, because it's the premise of everything in some degree, is the law of vibration. You know, a lot of people hear the law of attraction. Right? Everyone knows that one, but that's not that's the second one out of the three when it comes to manifesting or creating your life. The law of vibration states that all you can only experience in your life where you're vibrating at. Nothing above, nothing below, just what you're vibrating at. And so to me, that's the favorite one. That's the one I work on all the time, because that's the premise of me creating my life. Because once I set my vibration to wherever I want it to be at, then all of a sudden the attraction is just going to happen. It happens automatically. And then from there, the manifestation, which shows up in my physical world, just happens. And so that's one of my, the one I work on a lot, the one I love talking about a lot. They're all amazing in their own way. Like the law of transformation of perpetual energy. I love that one, because it means you can never stay fixed in one position. You're always changing. But that also means that also proves how we're infinite, how our soul never dies. It just changes form like water. I mean, that law was fascinating for me when I learned that one, because I was like, hold up, I understand that from a soul perspective. And then I had to break it down into a smaller perspective, like, but we change our energy all the time. We can change and fluctuate the higher energy states, lower energy states. We're always moving. There's nothing ever, we're never stagnant. We're never stuck. We're never in a state of, I can go on and on with these laws, but it's one of those things where, but the law of vibration is my all-time one that I love talking about, focusing on, and so much more.
And so if somebody is cognizant of the law of vibration, they can actually use that to try to change what is coming in their environment. So say, for example, somebody is suffering from an eating disorder, or yeah, like I just met somebody recently in my business, my breathwork business, that he would overeat his whole life, and he struggled with weight. And he was using it as a coping mechanism for some very deep rooted problems from childhood. And it just was this a most amazing testimony where after he did my 2-hour class with the breath work, he came back to me a month later and said, I cannot explain it, but I do not feel like I need to overeat. I don't take sneak meals anymore. I stop when I'm full. I have no interest in alcohol. I have no interest in eating junk food. It's not anymore a problem. It really, really was unbelievable. I've never had a testimony like that. And he said that he's tried so many other things, so many different diets, therapy, but this breath work actually got into the root of the problem, because what it does is it talks directly to the body, and the body keeps the score. I don't know if you read that book. It's just an amazing book if anybody wants to check it out. But it builds on the premise that all the trauma in our life that happens to us, something happens inside us, it gets stored away in our tissues, in our organs, in our muscle, and we just lock it away and we don't want to deal with it. And that it manifests in a different way. It can manifest in an eating disorder, could manifest in an addiction, could manifest in a pattern of self-harm. And that's your vibration that you are vibrating at, because you are literally energy that's moving. Everything is energy. And then if you are unconscious of something in your energy field, you're going to be acting out in unconscious ways that align with that. So do you want to speak a little bit on the alignment, since you're a chiropractor that is all about alignment, how we align ourselves to certain things? And now, like, for instance, my client has now aligned himself to a healthy relationship with food. What would be an example that you've seen your clients do that align themselves with entrepreneurship or successful business making?
I love it. What a great story about the breathwork stuff. It's really amazing. And yeah, our bodies store. I didn't read that book, but I studied this years ago from an energy healing techniques, where how cellular memory is what it's called. And it's how everything that we go through gets stored in the cells. And then different energies can go into different areas of different cells, which end up being in different organs and so forth, that cause havoc on the energy systems. But when it comes to an alignment standpoint, the reason why I'm so big on vision is because a lot of times our actions have to align to what it is our vision is and what we want to achieve for ourselves. And if we don't have if we're not focused and centered from that, always focusing on this is who I'm going, this is where I'm going. And what I mean by focus is that you don't not that you don't pay attention to, you don't allow the energetic charge that happens with the short-term stuff that's showing up. Like I shared my story about being bankrupt. Even though I knew I was going through that, at the same time, I was just I would just focus, like, but this is where I'm going. This is what it's going to mean for me. This is how it's gonna. This is what I needed to go through. It's one of those things where your actions, thoughts, and emotions, get excited about it, and then your actions have to be in alignment with that. When you start to have an alignment with that, and you focus, and you're keeping your focus there, again, it's like a laser. You got all these different points coming together, and it's coming into one point. When you're able to do that, when you're laser focused like that, it's very hard not to manifest what you want or what you want to experience. And that's the critical point, because when things are in alignment, just like the body, when things are in alignment, the body works more at ease. When things are in alignment, you're more in a flow state. You don't have a lot of resistance coming up. And when you have less resistance, more things will happen to you. They happen faster. You hear people like all of a sudden just blow up out of nowhere. And it's like that they were in a pure, beautiful, wonderful alignment state. And I have many clients I could talk about, even my own self, multiple times, but it's when you get to that state, this is when the biggest thing that entrepreneurs make, or just humans in general, is we want things to be a certain way, but then we don't allow for whatever is going to come for us. And what I mean by that is, what happens is, let's say you want an apple and the universe brings you an orange. If you're resisting that process, that you didn't get your apple and you're really bothered by that, you had attachment, which creates resistance and all these other things. And you're going to be upset, and you're going to miss the point that, well, at the end of the day, really all you asked was for fruit, and the universe brought you the fruit that was best for you, for your greatest good. And that's what I mean by allowing for whatever to show up, and not get fixated saying, well, it's because of this or that. I'm sharing this because I went through that a lot, and I realized I was creating all this resistance. That's where my business would do really well. And then I come back down, then I go back up again, I come back down. I was like, why am I having this yo-yo effect? And then I started to realize, hold up here. It's because I'm judging the success that's coming, instead of just allow for whatever to show up and be like, thank you, universe, and just be grateful for what shows up. So that's how I use alignment to, from a mindset perspective, from an energy perspective, from a vision perspective, making sure that everything that we do then is always in that alignment process, so that we're in a flow state of energy. So that, and there's things I share about feelings and stuff to know when to act upon when you are there. You got to have some sort of a guidance system, but it's those things that when you do those things, all of a sudden you're more in a flow state, and you're being more laser focused.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Victor, for sharing your insight. I feel like we got to a good stopping point. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we sign off?
There's two things. One is have fun in life. I mean, you hear this often, but really have fun. It's really designed to be that way. It's not meant to be so serious and all this other stuff. Don't wait to think that what I'm saying is out there until your time transitions and then you realize, oh man, it was supposed to be like that. Enjoy it now. The second thing is there's no such thing as a failure. There's no such thing as bad. I mean, you create the meaning of things, but and when I mean sometimes in the manifestation where we think, oh, we just set our vibe and it's going to happen. Yes, that is true, but you have to go through the work that's holding you back, and that's where the darkness comes. Those are where the challenging times comes. But if you can find that trust, that faith means inner knowing within yourself, knowing it's all going to work out the way you want it to. Know that the universe is always there to support you. There's no reason why you should be stressed. I mean, we'll get stressed, but it shouldn't stick around. It'll be more like how animals are. They get stressed, they shake it off, and then they forgot all about it. And that's where humans we need to get back to because we hold on to things for way too long.
That is so true. Oh my gosh, I can go on and on about that. Shake it off. Okay, Victor, thank you so much for your sharing and your time. And I just really appreciate the knowledge that you shared here with us. Do you want to tell people how to get a hold of you, where to find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, you can my website's my hub, empoweryourreality.com. I have everything on there. What I was talking about resonates with you as a business owner. I do a free discovery call where I get to kind of know where your struggles are, your pain is, or what you got going on as challenges, where you want to go, what's your dream life, what's your vision. I have some free resources. We talked about visualization and vision. I have a free ebook on the power of visualization where I share how power mind can actually alter the I want to say physical matter. It's kind of crazy on some of these studies. And then social media, I'm bottom left corner of my website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. If there's any questions you have or anything, reach out. I love hearing from people.
All right, I will link those in the description. Victor Manzo, thank you for your time. Please check out those resources because I know he has a lot of helpful tips and I just appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.